Is my lighting okay, by the way?
Looks amazing.
It's so
All right,
red.
guys. All right, I clicked the live button. And
What does that mean? Does that mean we're live?
that means we're live, yeah.
I think it means that.
So here we are, another Matt, Man, and Robin show. I haven't always been on the show, but I'm an honorary permanent guest here. We've had today we've got Michael and Bill. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Oh boy, up to me. All right. So Bill Church, I'm the CTO and security architect for F5 Government Solutions out of DC.
And I am Michael Coleman. I am the solo cloud architect covering all of federal out of DC.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, guys.
So one of the things I'm going to point out right out of the gate too, we are all F5 guys, but I think one of the things that we most have in common is we kind of nerd out about how good we all think we look on our videos.
I mean, you know.
I wouldn't go that far.
We're pretty smart looking gentlemen, and we have these. I think we get these great cameras, so we make sure that our beauty is properly conveyed.
I mean, the amount of editing that I have to do on myself on videos has brought me to hate my voice and my face.
So yeah, this is not really an infomercial. Excuse me, an infomercial, obviously, but an opportunity to be social with people. And the irony is, for the most part, social media is an activity that we engage in when we're alone. And now we're trying to practice our social skills online here together. So I remember a while back, and you guys probably remember this, but Brian McHenry, another F5er, did a presentation encouraging staff to participate in social media and stuff. And it's been a long path of honing those skills to the point where we can now all have a conversation together, and stream it live and post it on LinkedIn and places like that. So it's kind of a fun transformation.
It's something, all right.
So, Robin, too. I'm using this so that I support kind of a broad array of people across North America for F5, and I can't be everywhere all the time. So this is also another scenario where I'm connecting with a lot of the people that I don't get this opportunity to. So everybody out there who is watching or does see this is not just an opportunity for F5 guys to get together to talk F5 or whatever nerdy tech that it is we're interested in. It's also an opportunity that we're trying to connect with the partners and customers and everything that we're working with across the board. So, like I said, this is a forum not only for us to chat, but for us to interact with everybody who's out there who's trying to do this with us too, right? So it's kind of a journey we're taking with everybody. So in that vein, though, I think we should probably take advantage of these super smart guys that we have on with us too. And one of the things that I know we talk about a lot too, and I was talking to someone about this today, is a lot of the automation stuff we do talk about, and not only how that applies to I came up with this with a friend today where we were talking about how we talk about F5 stuff, and he's like, actually, a lot of the automation stuff is how he's tying this around what he's doing for his drone project or his car project or some AWS stuff that he's working on, donkey car stuff. I don't know if you guys have any projects or similar anecdotes that you talk about with customers or things you do like this, or is this kind of not something that's in your purview?
I mean, for me, it is. So I think one of the most interesting things that I came across recently was, as Robin knows, I got a Tesla last year, and I nerded out really hard about the idea that it had an API, right? So my car has got an API, and I could send commands to it and do posts and gets, and it's crazy as hell. But the idea of that is that it's not a private API, right? It's exposed to the internet ultimately. So it's vulnerable to anything that the internet's vulnerable to. So any kind of attacks you can launch against a service, presumably my car would be vulnerable to, right? So the security of that API is very important. And of course, I connected it to my home automation system immediately, and I can ask the who should not be named to unlock my car and lock my car and turn it on and get the air running and all that stuff. I live in Florida, right? So it's something we do a lot. But yeah, so I love trying to take what I do for a living and also try to make that bit fun. And for me, that's been home automation and anything I can do where it has to do with scripting or programming in a way I can kind of make the homestead a little bit better at the same time.
Right. I do the same too. Mine are what sound like quite a bit more basic. I can't control my car or anything cool, but I'm a lights guy. I have a simple, okay, Google, studio off.
Stop that.
Oh, yeah.
That's
why it's like she who shall not be named.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
You've played yourself.
I would say that I've done it more on the work side with a lot of the automation stuff. I mean, there's two major use cases I run into quite often. One of which I spent most of today working with Microsoft on is utilizing infrastructure as code automation so that customers have the ability to not only test different infrastructure as code templates, but adding them into their CI/CD pipelines. And another one is sort of doing what our government calls ATO in a day, or 24-hour ATO, which is authority to operate, that's the acronym. It gives them a way to instantly test their environment or continually verify the security within the environment and bring back those results into a remediation system, and ultimately compiling that in a source of truth for the configuration scenarios for any of those systems that they deploy. So they've got a real-time automation of enterprise security, so that at any time, anything that they discover on the network, whether it be like something like Apache struts, that's detected instantaneously, basically, and then they're able to bring that into F5 products and provide security for those solutions. I'm seeing some really cool stuff that we might be able to do when we add in things like Shape and Nginx into those infrastructures as well.
I'm super cool about Shape stuff, I'm super interested in the Shape stuff. The day that acquisition closed for us, I have not had so many people call me about, so what can we start doing immediately? I'm like, it's Monday. This came out at 4:00 on Friday. Like, I don't know if you know how this works, but it's going to take us at least 2 or 3 days.
At least 2 or 3. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Actually, you know what? When we talk about kind of the automation that you're talking about too, Mike, I was working with some of the Canadian Fed guys. And we were doing these demos. Actually, we did a video of a demo, and like in true live demo. Hey, there's Dan. He's coming right now.
Yes, Dan.
Did a true live video with us, and the gremlins for live demos were right there watching us, and they screwed it up. The coolest part is in just over 20 minutes, we were able to deploy a whole AWS infrastructure, roll out the big IP, and set everything up in real time with, like, it failed, and we restarted and did it in 23 minutes, I think it took. And we did a video on this live, just like we're doing now. And I thought it was one of the best ones we did, too, because I love how the live demo is truly live and real, where it broke right in the middle, and we were able to turn it up, fire it up, do it again.
Yeah, I'll say our Canadian federal boys do some good work, Dan and Steve.
Yeah.
They've got some pretty solid demos. I know Steve has been doing quite a bit, and we're trying to port a lot of that into Terraform. But I'd say those guys are doing quite a bit for automation orchestration for the demos for the government up there as well.
Right.
And demos are a major asset. I mean, being able to spool up not only a demo in a matter of minutes, we're talking like 6 to 10 minutes for some of these demos. Infrastructures that used to take us weeks plus with professional services or very serious engagements where we'd have to step out of our normal roles and go be head down at a customer for weeks at a time to prove these scenarios out. Where right now we can click a button and have an entire infrastructure up in like 6 minutes. It's pretty ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
So let me ask another question too. Do you guys walk through the door with the Hashey Corp guys, or are you working with Hashey Corp actively? I'm assuming the answer is yes, but what is
My answer is yes. One of the reasons, and I don't know how much into the gray area that I'm getting here, but Hashey Corp is one of the other partners that is highly involved in Jedi with Microsoft. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the JEDI program, but it's a $10 billion contract from the Pentagon for cloud services. So Terraform is kind of baked into that. So infrastructure as code and automation are a major part. So yes, as a long way to respond to that question, yeah, we've got some very tight integrations and relationship with those guys.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So you said something that resonated there when you're walking. Oh, the JEDI program. So I vaguely know about that from also one of my weekly reads that are a must read. I skip so many emails, but the Mike Coleman email I get every week is like top of my list. I'm like, you got to get through this because this is all the coolest stuff that they're doing in North America. So Mike, thanks for that, because I do actually ingest that whole email. There's so many of them I have to like, because just so much. But that one's great. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I send out an email once a week to the federal team as my federal cloud updates, and there are a lot of links, and that's actually pared down from the amount of. So I have Google alerts set up that keep me informed of all the things that are going on, and I have to go through and read those articles and find out which ones actually apply,
right?
That I think are important. So I get a lot of guys that say, "Hey, can you pare this down more?" And really, no. I mean, if you don't want to read them, that's cool.
Yeah.
But you have the ability to go through and search. And I'm hearing that I've got a lot of background noise going on. I am in the lobby of a hotel. So unless you guys want me to throw something at people, I'll just keep muting myself.
No, you're
fine.
good.
It's
Everything's
working well.
fine.
Yeah.
I like the fireside theme here, but it almost looks like Bill's place is on fire, actually.
I mean, you know.
Yeah, I've got one of
My hair's
Bill's
on fire.
sister-in-laws. One of Bill's sister-in-laws is talking trash on me right now, so I gotta fire back to that.
He doesn't look very alarmed, so.
Nah.
You know, we're guilty of acronym soup, just like every other vendor is. One of the acronyms that I've heard on presentations internally was Sokka. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there was two, and I'll preface it saying we've got a pretty fantastic relationship with some of the Microsoft cloud architects that work for Azure. They came to us probably about 2 years ago now with a proposal because they were looking at this guidance documentation from our overarching information security agency in the U.S. federal called DISA, called Secure Cloud Computing Architecture. Initially, they met with some management. They had Bill involved, Eric Chen, and several other people, and they came up with this science project that kind of met all of these 100 plus requirements for deploying infrastructure to the cloud for all of the U.S. federal, specifically within our Department of Defense. It worked fantastic for about a year or so. The problem that we ran into is the way that things were working is that there was too many dependencies, and in the world of open source, there was too many things changing. Too many different versions. Same for us with our APIs, with like AS3 and declarative onboarding and things like that. So I kind of took it on board, rewrote the whole thing, and now we've got this thing called Sokka V2, which stands for Secure Azure Computing Architecture, which is very Azure specific. We're also working on secure cloud architectures for AWS. But essentially what it is just Azure Resource Manager templates that allow you to deploy very complex security infrastructure to Azure in about 6 minutes or so. We've also expanded that to also include some Terraform templates. The key thing is this isn't new to us. This isn't rocket science. We're not changing anything that F5 has done. So a lot of our customers will recognize, F5 deploying a DMZ type scenario, a security VPC or a security VNet, where you have a DMZ or security zone where you're processing traffic that's traversing your infrastructure. Where the magic comes in is when we implement some of the application services, so AS3, where we're able to set a baseline security policy for all traffic that enters the environment. So we can set a baseline firewall, baseline IPS, baseline WAF policies for anything that gets deployed in that scenario. And it's really helped streamline and set the example for customers because we do have a lot of information in Cloud Docs on how to do certain things. But from my perspective, I don't learn unless I see somebody else's code. And there's an old saying that real developers steal. And unless I can see some other developers like example of working code, it doesn't click for me. So until I saw like examples of actual working implementations of AS3 and declarative onboarding, it didn't really click like the value. Like I could see, yeah, sure, I can do that. But when I saw what it actually does, that's when it started adding a tremendous amount of value.
Interesting. So we're not going to be too much longer here. We're going to try to keep this short and sweet. And we got to talk about some of the things you guys are working on. But what do you guys see happening in the future? Like, what are the things that people are looking forward to? Like, if we roll the clock back 20 years, we're working on virtualization, and data centers were migrating and consolidating. And we've, in the past couple of years, people have started thinking about Kubernetes and OpenShift, and we're, the differences between, node port and cluster mode, and when to use Nginx and VXLAN, and now the changes with OpenShift 4.2 and operator mode. And there's so many complexities around that. Are there other things that you guys can think of that make people in the industry rethink how they approach technology? And
I mean, I would say all this has happened before, and all this will happen again.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in a cycle. I mean, we just changed the terms, but if we go back to mainframes and dumb terminals and things like that, it's just a same thing, just different new technologies, different ways to do the same things that we've always been doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess
I would agree with that.
I guess it's just a matter of figuring out how to remain abreast of technology and foresee what's coming. And
I mean, if you're looking for a new technology sort of overview, you're talking to Fed guys. So we're still working in that 20-year-old technology time frame.
Well, I mean, it's a kind of a running joke, right? That we always get is, well, you guys are 10 years behind. The reality, for the most part, yes, right. There's a lot of, still data centers are a big thing, even though cloud first was, almost 16 years ago, just about. I mean, it seemed like it was forever. But
right.
Things like SSL inspection and visibility, that came out of federal before anybody else was starting to talk about it. So that's something we brought to corporate actually as a feature. And it's very, it's not very often that a government customer goes to a company and says, "Hey, we've got this innovative idea," right? So, things like that, things around authentication technologies. I mean, I think government, at least U.S. Fed, because that's what I'm familiar with, has probably had a pretty good handle on credentialing and identity, right? The smart card mutual TLS authentication, probably one of the best ways if you can implement it. Probably one of the best ways to secure an application, because if you can't get through the front door, there's not a lot left to attack. That doesn't mean they're completely impervious, right? There's still other ways in. TLS can still be broken in some cases, but it definitely knocks a lot of the easy paths out. So, I think authentication is still going to be pretty huge. If you're still using just a username and password anywhere, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when you're going to be breached and be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, I'm in the industry. I know what not to do. I definitely use the same username and password on multiple sites, right? Shouldn't do it. But if a site lets me do it and they let me use a compromised password, I'm going to do it because it's easy. I remember it.
That's right. I'm totally guilty. I mean, there are websites that I started using 15 years ago, and multi-factor authentication was never a concern back then.
Well, so this came up on a call with Peter Schaffler too, and we talked about password managers. So I used two, and I had just last week, one of my password managers popped up on my screen and said, "Hey, by the way, you have 4 compromised accounts. Go change them." I'm like, "What?" So I went in, changed them all, and it seems like everything's okay, and not using that password anymore. But that was the duplicate password thing too. Is those were the ones that were hacked, the ones that was at repeat use. But
yeah.
Anyways, super cool. Robin, do you got any kind of final thing we kind of want to wrap up with, or make sure we include?
Well, it is 20 after. We're going to try to keep this under 20 minutes, but I had a question for Michael. You're going to be traveling shortly up to the Great White North. You've seen the forecasts, obviously. They don't look good. When you travel, how far in advance do you have to book Air Force One before you can come up here?
I mean, so, and it's funny, and I think I told you this via text message, that I've been to, I mean, I'm formally enlisted in the military. I've been with F5 for over 8 years now. I've been to like almost every other country, if not continent. The only place that I have not been is Canada. And I've worked contracts in Detroit for years. I lived in Peshtigo, Wisconsin for a period of time. And I have still never crossed that border into Canada. So, I mean, really, 2 weeks is our normal sort of window if I can book it in 2 weeks. Sometimes I'm booking a month and a half ahead of time. But I'm excited to get up and visit our boys up in Ottawa and check out some poutine and see what else, the weather brings. I think I've told Chef before that I'm not afraid of some ice fishing. I'll come up there and check it out and see what the cold weather's about. You know.
Oh, buddy, if you're doing that, I'm so in.
Yeah, I mean,
you're going to be here.
My family is British and Irish. You know, I'm almost first generation. I think my dad was one of the first born in the U.S. Cold and wet do not bother me. I'm also a fat guy, so you know I've got that extra insulation, so it helps out.
All I'm saying is I drew the short straw because I'll be in Omaha, Nebraska that same week, and I'm not a fan. Yeah. Much rather be up there with you guys.
Hey, Lake tells me it's great there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm telling you, Mike, make sure you ping me when you're coming in town. I'll be in Ottawa when you're there. Make sure you guys
next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday.
All right. Well, thanks for jumping on and practicing social skills or lack thereof with us.
You guys still haven't told me what to do with my hands.
Is that like a emoticon?
What do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
I'm going to put that YouTube video in the show notes too. So things I'm going to include in the notes for the wrap up. Sokka V2, our Git repository, and the video. We can all see it. We know what's happening.
Go ahead. Be like us, Coleman. Just this will be the thumbnail. I like it. This is a thumbnail.
I'm trying to get
both hands.
Trying to get to my mute button.
Okay, Google screenshot.
Is that how that works? Is that a thing?
No, she doesn't know how to help.
We'll see you guys later.
Later.
We'll see y'all.